Come, sit with me again. For tonight, I have another tale. This one begins not in a mansion, but in Aba, the city of 1,000 sewing machines, where half of Nigeria comes to be dressed. In Aba, clothes does not lie, but sometimes people do. This is the story of a quiet seamstress named Ngozi, told for years that her patience was a weakness. Her grandmother taught her otherwise. She used to say, "A hasty stitch tears before the day is done, but a patient stitch outlives the cloth." Ngozi believed that completely, and one day, that quiet belief would do more than save a business. It would help save children's life. Ngozi was 6 years old when her grandmother, Mama Chinwe, first placed a needle in her hand. Mama Chinwe had sewn wrappers and school uniforms in that same small house for 40 years, and her fingers moved as though they remembered a song. Slowly, Nne, she would say, guiding the small hand, "Anybody can finish first, not everybody can finish well." Little Ngozi often wanted to rush, to tie the knot and run outside to play, but every time she rushed, the seam would open days later, and Mama Chinwe would simply hand it back without a word of scolding. "A hasty stitch tears before the day is done," she would say gently, "but a patient stitch outlives the clothes." Ngozi unpicked her work 100 times that year. By the 101st, her hands had learned patience the way other hands learn to swim. Years later, Ngozi arrived in Aba as a young woman with a small suitcase and a large ambition to apprentice under the most respected tailoring house in the city, Obi Fashion House. She swept the floors before anyone else woke, checked every fabric delivery twice, and pressed each seam as though it were her own wedding gown. Other apprentices finished faster and left early. Ngozi stayed behind, quietly redoing whatever did not yet meet her grandmother's standard. Nobody applauded her for it. Nobody needed to. She was not sewing for applause. Obi Fashion House had been built stitch by stitch over 30 years by one man, Papa Ejike Obi, a master tailor whose name on the collar meant a garment that would outlive its owner. His son Ikenna was being groomed to inherit it all. Sharp-suited, quick-tongued, always in a hurry to be seen as the future. Where Papa Ejike checked a hem twice, Ikenna waved it though. Where Ngozi counted every fabric badge against her ledger before a single machine touched it, Ikenna called it such care old-fashioned and slow. Two philosophies were growing under one roof. Only one of them could survive what was coming. One afternoon, Ikenna held up a jacket Ngozi had spent 3 extra hours perfecting and laughed for the whole floor to hear. "Look at her, still finishing one jacket, while the rest of us finish 5. You will die an apprentice, Ngozi, sewing your pride into every color." Some of the younger workers laughed along, eager to please the boss's son. Ngozi did not look up from her machine. She simply finished her seam, snipped the thread clean, and set the jacket aside. Perfect as always. She had learned long ago that the loudest voice in the room is rarely the one still standing at the end of it. Then came news that shook the whole workshop awake. Brightway Schools Group, one of the largest private school networks in the country, was awarding a single enormous contract, uniforms and science lab coats, for every student in over 200 schools nationwide. Whoever won it would be set for life. Papa Ejike gathered his staffs, eyes shining. "This contract could carry our name into every state in this country," he said. And to manage the scale of it, he placed his son Ikenna in charge of production. It was, he believed, the perfect chance for his son to finally prove himself. But the contract came with strict conditions. Every lab coat had to be sewn from certified flame-retardant fabric, tested to protect students during science experiments. That fabric was expensive, and the deadline was brutally short. Alone in a back office, Ikenna made a call, not to their trusted supplier, but to a cheaper contact across town who sold ordinary cotton blend clothes, dyed and finished to look almost identical to the real thing. Nobody will know the difference, Ikenna told himself, signing an order that would save the company millions of naira. He was wrong. Cloth may not shout, but it never quite forgets what it is. There was still one obstacle. Every badge required an official safety certificate before it could ship. So Ikenna arranged a quiet meeting with the compliance inspector, a tired civil servant named Mr. Dauda. An envelope of cash slid across a calf table. A rubber stamp pressed down onto paper it had no right to approve. In minutes, a lie became official. Ikenna walked out smiling, certain he had solved his problem. He did not yet know that somewhere on the workshop floor, an apprentice with a notebook was about to start asking the questions clothes can never answer for a lawyer. Where did you really come from? To meet the new deadline, Ikenna pushed the whole floor harder. Longer hours, shorter breaks, quotas that left no room for care. Two of the younger apprentices, Chiamaka and Ifoma, worked until their fingers ached from pink bricks. Terrified of losing the little money they sent home to their families, Ngozi watched them with a quiet protective eye, finding them extra breaks, checking their seams before Ikenna could find any fault. Sharing her own lunch when theirs ran out. She could not change the pace Ikenna demanded, but she could make sure two frightened girls were not carrying it alone. Every night, after the machines fell silent, Ngozi did what she had always done. She checked the day's fabric batches against her ledger, matching numbers, noting quantities, a habit so old it no longer felt like work. One evening, the numbers refused to match. A batch marked as the certified flame-retardant clothes carried a supplier code she did not recognize. She frowned, checked again, and told herself it was simply a clerical mistake. Tired hands make tired efforts after all. But something in her did not quite believe that. So quietly, she wrote the strange number down. It became a habit within a habit. Whenever a badge looked unfamiliar, whenever an invoice arrived from a supplier she had never heard the accountant mention, Ngozi copied it into a small notebook she kept in her bag, not accusing anyone, not yet even certain there was anything to accuse. She simply remembered what her grandmother always told her. A good seamstress always knows where her clothes comes from, because clothes cannot lie to you, but only if you are patient enough to ask it the right questions again and again until it finally answers. Weeks later, Ikenna assigned Ngozi the one job every apprentice dreaded, counting the back storeroom shelf by shelf, bale by bale. Nobody wanted the dusty, tedious task. Ngozi, as always, did not complain. Deep in a corner behind bills, properly stamped with the mill's real certification, she found something else. A stack of plain, unmarked fabric rolls, freshly relabeled with stickers that did not quite match the printing on the ones beside them. She ran her fingers over the clothes. It felt thinner, cheaper, wrong. Her heart began to pound in the quiet storeroom, louder than any machine on the floor outside. Tucked between two invoices in the drawer he had been asked to tidy, Ngozi found a folded slip of paper, a handwritten receipt for an unusually large cash payment, initialed simply for D. Certificate, no company name, no formal stamp, just 5 words that suddenly made the mismatched batch numbers, the strange fabric, and Mr. Dauda's recent unexplained visit fit together like the final pieces of a garment pattern. Ngozi sat very still for a long moment. She was only an apprentice, Who in that building would ever believe her over the master's own son? She folded the receipt carefully and hid it inside her notebook. That night, Ngozi called the only person whose judgment she trusted completely. She told Mama Chinwe everything in a whisper. Half afraid the phone line itself might carry her words back to the workshop. Her grandmother listened without interrupting, then spoke slowly. Nay, do not shout a suspicion. A suspicion shouted is easily denied. Gather it thread by thread until it becomes something no one can unpick. When a person is truly determined, even destiny leans forward to help them, but destiny helps the patient hand, not the hasty mouth. Ngozi wiped her eyes and began quietly to plan. Ngozi borrowed 2 small offcuts, one from a bale she trusted, one from the strange freshly labeled stack, and carried them home, wrapped in clothes, like something precious. That night, in a metal basin in her small backyard, by the light of a single bulb, she touched a match to each in turn. The genuine fabric cut briefly, then caught, smoked and went dark on its own, exactly as a true flame-retardant cloth should. The second fabric did something else entirely. It caught and kept burning, hungrily until she smothered it herself. Ngozi sat back on her heels in the darkness, shaking. Now she was no longer guessing. Now she knew. Weeks became months. Quietly, patiently, Ngozi kept building her case. Photographs of mismatched batch stickers on her old phone, dates recorded beside every discovery, swatches folded into small labeled envelopes at the bottom of her bag. All the while, her hands never stopped moving on the machines. Her own work, if anything, grew even more exact. But Ikena began to notice her watching the delivery trucks a little too closely, writing a notebook she quickly closed whenever he passed. You are here to sew, not to audit my business, he snapped at her one evening. Careful, Ngozi. Curiosity has ended careers shorter than yours. Ngozi only nodded and said nothing at all. At last, the enormous order was complete. Crates of crisp uniforms and pristine white lab coats, stacked floor to ceiling, ready for 200 schools across the country. The workshop erupted in celebration. Music, jollof rice, Papa Ejike shaking every hand in sight, tears of pride in his old eyes. My son has done it, he told anyone who would listen. He has carried the family's name further than I ever could. Ikena soaked in the praises like sunlight. Ngozi clapped along with everyone else, her smile steady, her notebook waiting silently at the bottom of her bag. 3 weeks later, in a bright science laboratory, many miles from Aba, a teacher demonstrated a simple flame experiment to a room of wide-eyed students. A spark leaped further than expected and touched the sleeves of a boy's brand new lab coat. For one terrible second, the fabric did not smother the flame as it was designed to. It caught and fled. The teacher smothered it with a cloth in seconds. The boy escaped with only a scar and a small burn on his wrist. The school directors were furious and frightened. A former compliant reached Brightway Schools Group that same afternoon, explained this, or the entire contract and every remaining shipment will be cancelled immediately. The news landed in Obi Fashion House like a collapsing roof. Papa Ejike went pale, reading the complaints aloud. Ikena's mind moved fast, not toward the truth, but away from it. It must be a construction fault, he announced to the room, his eyes finding young Chiamaka. She stitched that batch sleeves linings. Careless work, nothing more. I will handle her. Chiamaka's face crumbled in confused terror. She had followed every instruction given to her. Ngozi felt something inside her go very still and very clear. She had spent months gathering quiet proof for a day she hoped might never come. That day had just arrived. Ngozi understood something in that moment that no ledger could have taught her. Patience is not the same as silence forever. Patience is simply waiting for the moment when the truth would actually be heard, and refusing to speak 1 second before that or 1 second after. Watching an innocent girl about to be sacrificed for another man's fraud, Ngozi finally knew that moment had come. That moment she did not sleep. She laid out her notebook, her photographs, her 2 labeled swatches, and the folded receipt on her small table, and looked at everything her patience had quietly gathered. Tomorrow, she decided she would finally open her mouth. Early the next morning, before the machines woke, Ngozi asked Papa Ejike for a private word. She was shaking, but her voice did not waver as she placed her notebook on his desk, followed by the photographs and the 2 swatches, and finally the folded receipts. She explained everything, plainly without embellishments, because the truth she had learned rarely needs decoration. Papa Ejike read in silence for a long time. When he finally looked up, his eyes were wet. "This is my son's handwriting on this delivery note," he said quietly. This was not a question, it was a man's whole word, quietly rearranging itself. Papa Ejike could have buried it quietly, protected his son, protected the family name. For one long moment, sitting with his head in his hands, it looked as though he might, then he straightened, and something of the master craftsman returned to his eyes. 30 years I have put my name on every collar that leaves this building, he said. I will not start hiding behind it now. He picked up his phone and called Brightway Schools group directly, requesting a full transparent inspection, inviting their own safety experts to attend in person. Alongside his entire staff, Ngozi had brought him the truth. He was chosen fully to carry it forward. 4 days later, the workshop floor was transformed into a courtroom of sorts. Mrs. Grace Adisa, head of procurement for Brightway Schools Group, arrived with an independent safety expert, Engineer Michael Bassi, a briefcase of testing equipment in hands. Every apprentice stood along the walls in tense silence. Ikena arrived last, in his sharpest suit, a folder of paperwork under his arms, and a confident smile fixed carefully in place. He had already decided how this meeting would go. An unfortunate construction error. One careless young apprentice quietly dismissed, and business as usual by Friday. He had not accounted for what patience, given enough time, can build. Ikena opened smoothly, presenting his falsified certificates as though they were simply routine paperwork, and gesturing towards Chiamaka as the source of an isolated stitching error. The young girl stared at the floor, close to tears, unable to defend herself against the boss's confident lie. Mrs. Adisa's expression stayed carefully neutral, unconvinced but polite. It was then that Ngozi stepped forward from the wall. "Please," she said, her voice clear in the silent room. "Before anyone is blamed, I think there is something everyone here needs to see." Every head in the room turned towards the quiet apprentice nobody had ever asked to speak before. Papa Ejike gave a small steady nod, and Ngozi opened her notebook on the long table for everyone to see. Page after page, dated batch numbers that did not match official supply records, photographs of mismatched stickers on unmarked fabric rolls, and finally, the folded receipts for these certificates, laid down like the final piece of a puzzle she had patiently assembled, one careful piece at a time. Ikena's confident smile began to sleep. Miss Adisa leaned forward, studying each page with growing focused alarm. "Papers can be argued with," Ngozi said quietly, reaching out into her bag. "Clothes cannot." She placed 2 swatches on the metal tray before Engineer Bassi, one from the certified badge, one from the storeroom she had counted months before. With everyone's permission, he tested each with a small open flame. The first fabric cut briefly, then colored and went dark exactly as required. The second flared instantly and kept burning, hungrily until it was smothered. A heavy silence fell across the workshop floor. There was no argument left to make. The cloth itself had just told the only truth that mattered. Engineer Bassi turned slowly to Mr. Dauda, who had been standing quietly near the door, and asked him directly to explain the certificate bearing his official stamp. The inspector's composure crumbled in seconds. "He paid me," Mr. Dowder said, not meeting anyone's eyes, pointing weakly towards Ikenna. "I only stabbed what I was given." Papa Ejike closed his eyes, as though absorbing a physical blow. Ikenna opened his mouth to argue, found nothing true left to say, and closed it again. In front of his father, his staff, and the client who held his family's future in her hands, the whole fragile structure of his shortcut finally completely collapsed. Papa Ejike turned first to Chiamaka, still frozen against the wall, and spoke gently. "You have done nothing wrong, my child. I am deeply sorry this was placed anywhere near your name." Relief broke across the young girl's face like sunrise. Around the room, apprentices who had quietly admired Ngozi's careful, unhurried work for years now, looked at her with something closer to reverence. She had not raised her voice once through the entire ordeal. She had not need to. The truth, once fully unfolded, had done all the shouting required. Before leaving, Miss Adisa asked to speak with Ngozi directly. "In 15 years of procurement," she said, "I have rarely seen documentation this precise or courage this quiet. Brightway Schools Group will continue this contract, but only if you personally oversee every batch of fabric that leaves this building from now on." It was not a charity, it was not a family favor passed down the bloodline. It was a request earned, line by careful line, in a notebook nobody had ever asked her to keep. That same afternoon, Papa Ejike gathered the entire workshop floor. "For 30 years," he said, "my name has meant something on every collar we send into this world. Today, I'm adding a second name beside it." He unveiled a new woven label, the kind stitched quietly into every finished garment. "B Fashion House, quality overseen by Ngozi Ume." The workshop erupted in applause, louder even than the day the contract had first been announced. Ngozi stood very still, feeling the weight of 100 small patient stitches, finally fully seen. That weekend, Ngozi traveled home with something small but priceless, folded in her bag, the very first label bearing her own name. She placed it gently onto her grandmother's hands. Mama Chinwe turned the little woven tag over and over in the lamplight, reading her granddaughter's name stitched into it again and again, and wept without any attempt to hide it. "I only ever taught you to love the thread, Nne," she whispered, pressing the label to her chest. "You are the one who taught it to hold." Ngozi knelt beside her grandmother's chair, the way she had as a child, and for a long moment, neither of them said anything else at all. None was needed. Months later, the workshop floor looked much the same as it always had. Rows of humming machines, bright bolts of fresh clothes, the warm smell of pressed cotton drifting through open windows. But something fundamental had changed. Every fabric batch was now checked twice openly before a single machine touched it. Every certificate was verified independently. No envelopes, no shortcuts. And at the head of the floor, guiding a young hand exactly as her own had once been guided, stood Ngozi herself, teaching Chiamaka how to unpick a hurried seam and begin again. "Slowly," she said, smiling, hearing her grandmother's voice rise gently inside her own. "Anybody can finish first. Not everybody can finish well." Chiamaka nodded and did not rush. And so, my friends, remember the tale of Ngozi, the quiet seamstress everyone thought low to matter. She did not win with a loud voice or a clever trick. She won by doing one small honest thing correctly over and over, long after anyone was watching. As the elders say, when a person is truly determined, even destiny leads forward to meet them. Or as one grandmother in Aba likes to put it, a hasty stitch tears before the day is done, but a patient stitch outlives the clothes. So keep stitching, gently and honestly. I will see you in the next story.